again, the Pentonic 1000 chip. There seems to have been a bit of a kerfuffle online because some journalists just assumed that there'd be 4 HDMI 2.1 inputs on this chip.
Yes, yeah, and in their defense, when the product was first announced on the MediaTek website under HDMI 2.1 ports, it did say there'd be 4 of them, but that's now been corrected just as an unspecified number. Because, yeah, I mean, the assumption was based on those listings that the 4 HDMI ports would be HDMI 2.1, but yeah, it seems that it has been slightly exaggerated. I think some of the confusion might have come down from the fact that because in order to receive HDMI 2.1 certification, you only actually need to deliver one of the many features that HDMI 2.1 delivers, which includes dynamic HDR, eARC, variable refresh rates, auto low latency mode, all those kind of bells and whistles that come with it. So, I mean, I don't know the specifics of what these ports will deliver, but obviously the big one that a lot of people will be after is the 48 gigabytes per second bandwidth, which helps facilitate things like 4K 120 hertz, which is going to be a big deal for gamers and many other people. But it turns out the assumption is now that the Pentonic 1000 chip, of those 4 HDMI 2.1 ports, only 2 of those will support 48 gigabytes per second, which is obviously going to make a big deal to those people that were expecting 4 full fat HDMI 2.1 ports. Which does, I mean, it's not exactly a loophole in the system because, as far as I'm aware, the certification process has been around for a while. But I think part of the factor is that HDMI 2.0 certification has been pushed aside. So there might be a chance that 1 or 2 manufacturers might push the luck a little bit by pushing what would have previously been billed as HDMI 2.0 ports as HDMI 2.1. So you just need to check the small print to make sure what you're getting.
Check the reviews because we measure each of these ports. We'll tell you exactly what they are on the TVs. But yes, there was a bit of confusion. The rules were changed. I think HDMI.org need to kind of look at themselves a little bit in terms of what it is that they are now suggesting. So what they're suggesting is that if a manufacturer has, I don't know, 1 HDMI 2.1 port of 48 gigabits per second, and the other 3 are not, they're just HDMI 2.0, they can say that it's full bandwidth. They could have 4 HDMI 2.0s with eARC activated, which can be done on 2.1 ports, but call them 2.0 ports, but call them 2.1 ports. And you could have a consumer buying a TV thinking they are getting something that they're not getting, which is a bit naughty from the standards compliance side of things. They've changed these rules. But again, MediaTek, they take some of the blame here. They put out a document online that said you would get 4 HDMI 2.1 ports with the Pentonic 1000 chip, and that is not the case. It's 2 ports. Now, do you need 4 ports? I doubt anybody other than serious gamers who have more than 2 HDMI 2.1 devices would need 4. But of course, the argument is that Samsung and LG have been offering 4 48 gigabits per second HDMI 2.1 ports since, well, at least the last 4 years. Their models have carried 4. Obviously, they do their own silicon in-house. They don't use a company like MediaTek, so they can offer that. So yeah, it has caused a lot of problems, but I think, is it a PR disaster? I think what it highlights is that we need better standards. We need a company that's not just a commercial company who are handling the standards and saying what manufacturers can say and not say. It seems to be that standards are pretty lame, in my opinion. If you were asking me, it needs to be a bit tougher, a bit tighter. It's why we used to have things like THX certified or ISF certified attached to products and so on. You knew you were getting a certain level of performance. I think that's been really watered down, and changing what classifies a port as an HDMI 2.1 port is what's a bit of a fallacy now, if you ask me. Jules, you got any thoughts on this?
Yeah, it's not cricket, is it, Phil?
No, it's not. In my opinion, it's not.
Yeah. And it's somewhat disappointing, especially, the first indications, as we just heard, whether we're going to have 4 ports capable. And it now obviously is down to 2. And most of the places I go into, guys have got a PS5 or an Xbox. Sometimes you come across, quite often actually, people with both. And then very occasionally somebody will have a gaming PC in there as well. And yeah, they'll be, I guess that's going to throw the spotlight back to LG and to Samsung, as you've highlighted. So it's a missed opportunity, I think, and also disappointing because it raised hopes, which have just been dashed. It
has.
Yeah.
I mean, what you can't do is you can't blame the journalists who reported on this, because they were handed a press release from a company that specified what the specification would be for this chip, and they've just reported on that. So I think there was a bit of a backlash, which was a little bit unfair, I think. It should be the company that's holding their hands up here, having misled the market in terms of what was on this chip. But let's not have a complete downer, because there are some interesting things on the new Pentonic chip. It supports all the latest Wi-Fi, so 6 and 6E. It has frame interpolation technology on there, Dolby Vision IQ with precision detail. You got Dolby Atmos, you got DTS, Master HD, Virtual X Audio, intelligent view technology. So you can have 8 different streams onto a display, and each of those separate. So it's not like a picture-in-picture. It's actually separate streams, which is really, really powerful for some users, and that will be used certainly in the professional sphere. You have more powerful AI processing in there, and the list goes on. And obviously the interesting thing for our audience out there is Calman ready. So TV manufacturers don't need to go to portrait display now and spend a ton of money and years in terms of developing their TV sets to be able to do the auto cal with Calman and all the rest of it. It's built into the chips now. So any manufacturer can offer that to the end user. So there's a lot of great things on this chip. It's just the little bit of negativity seems to have blown into a big story. And I think it's just, and quite rightly, the standards being changed, that's naughty. That really is naughty. Should never have happened. And then, the company giving out false information and how many ports there would be, again, hasn't done them any favours, I don't think so.